Hello everybody and welcome back to Anxiety Chats. I always feel like I'm an old person when I make these videos, like telling a tale. Gather around and let me tell you a tale of childhood anxiety. A lot of us that experience moderate to severe anxiety later in life often had experiences of anxiety as a child, or maybe things that happened in childhood that made us anxious as adults. I personally believe that even if there's things that you aren't consciously aware of or you didn't really know about, there might have been things in your childhood that have contributed towards you being an anxious adult. That doesn't always necessarily mean big traumatic events, but often it means just times where you didn't feel completely safe or looked after. And my anxiety started when I was 10. I won't go so much into lots of detail in this video about things that led up to me being anxious, but there was things that went on in my family life, and there was things that went on in school when I was around 8 or 9 and younger that meant that I had a tough time. And often it is the case that when somebody goes through trauma, it's not until after the traumatic event has happened that the full extent of the consequences of that happening come out. So when I was about 10, we decided to move me school and to move to the other side of town, which is probably like, I don't know, like 40 minutes away. So I used to live right on the opposite side of Edinburgh, and now I live right on the opposite side this way. So we decided the best thing to do would be to move me school and to move house. And so that's what we did. I had no concept of what mental health was. I didn't know that there was a thing called mental health. I knew that there was happy and sad, but I didn't really know anything else other than that. And so yeah, we moved across and I started a new school, lots of new friends, obviously in a new house. There was just a lot of new things that happened, and I personally believe this is when I started having panic attacks. I remember having my first ever panic attack and having absolutely no idea what was going on, and the people around me had no idea what was going on. I'm 26 and this all happened obviously when I was 9 or 10, so about 16 years ago. Oh my god, is that right? Shit, that's a long time ago. So yeah, I was very young, and also back then, I know a lot of you watching are probably similar-ish age to me maybe. I'm 26. Honestly, mental health wasn't a thing. Like, I spoke to somebody the other day who's doing primary school teaching, who's trained to be a teacher, and it's all about mental health now. Like, they have so many things in place for children with mental health problems, or just for all children so that their mental health is good. But back then it was just not a thing, and so I was going through what I could describe as suddenly feeling very sick or suddenly needing to leave the room, and they had no idea what was wrong with me, but it was very obvious. I think at first they thought it was tantrums, they thought I was being naughty. So at first they would kind of tell me off, my parents and stuff would tell me off because they were like, what on earth is going on, what's she doing? And then eventually they realised, nah, there's something wrong here, but they assumed it was medical because that was the only thing it could have really been. They couldn't have thought like anxiety or anything like that. Because I was getting to the point where I didn't go to school. There was a few weeks where I didn't go to school at all because I just felt so unwell. I remember members of my family like looking at my diet and being like, maybe she's allergic to something, maybe all these things. And eventually they took me to the sick children's hospital and they were like, what is wrong with this child? What do we do? She keeps having these random things happen to her and we don't really know what's going on, or if she's making it up. And this isn't to say that people weren't trying their best to be supportive. I think they just didn't have a clue what was happening. I went into the hospital. I remember, don't know if any of you ever have those memories where there's like music attached to it, but I remember driving very clearly in the car and knowing I was going to the hospital and kind of being like, I don't really know why I'm going to the hospital. Like, I kind of knew that it wasn't like they were going to diagnose me with anything sinister. I just didn't have a clue what was going on, and I didn't really know that. I just was confused. And we got to the hospital and we've been playing music in the car, and still to this day whenever I listen to Arcade Fire I always think back to that journey as a 10-year-old going to the hospital and not really understanding why. I remember we got there, obviously not knowing, but at the time I was a very anxious child. I remember them saying follow the accident and emergency signs, and I was like, what is happening? Why is this an emergency? But actually it was just where the ward was that I needed to go. So I remember them taking loads of different types of tests, and actually it did come back that I have a condition called Hashimoto syndrome. I always forget the name of it, but that wasn't like, you know, it wasn't the cause of all this stuff. Like, I think because I got that diagnosis, they thought it was just that, but actually I think that was a very minor part of what was actually going on for me. But I remember at school, in my old primary school, I would sit in class, and I had a very nice teacher at the time. I would sit in class, and the teacher, I think the teacher understood more than anybody else. The teacher basically, very, very sweet looking back on this, like I really just think this is so lovely. He got this little bag, it was like this like purple little bag that I wore on my shoulder, and inside it he wrote lots of things down that when I was feeling anxious I could look at and read. So one of them was like, say the alphabet backwards or count to 100, things that would hopefully try and distract me from what I was going through. But that wasn't something that was going to help my quite stubborn anxiety. And so he made this little group of 2 of my best friends in my class. Whenever I would feel like I needed to leave the room, one of them would come with me and walk me around the school until I felt more calm and was able to go back into class. And I remember one of the main reasons that I would panic is there was a boy in my class that was always sick, and I don't know why. Maybe everyone kind of had a kid in their class that was sick quite a lot, but for me that was quite traumatic. It felt quite traumatic. I remember like looking at him and feeling this panic rising and being like, he's gonna be sick, he's gonna be sick, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then it happening, and then me just being like, I need to get out of this room. And so one of the girls would walk around the school with me, and there wasn't really much said about it after that. I don't remember like ever being talked through, okay, you have something called anxiety. Or I think people back then kind of believed that if you swept it under the carpet or you didn't talk about it, then it would go away. We know now that that's not the case, and that the more you talk about these things, genuinely, the better it is. Like, but back then it wasn't really like that. That was my kind of first experiences of anxiety, and the first time that I realised something was different. And none of my friends or people in my school had these, he called them Emily's Angels, had these Emily's Angels that would walk around the school with me. So I knew from that point something was different. And I haven't thought about that memory or those memories of being young for a very long time. So it's quite big to look back. And when I look back now, I am just like, oh, I wish I could go and hug that little girl and just tell her it's okay to feel like this. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not, you know, this is a lot of experience has happened in your short little life and you need just a cuddle. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I'd really love to know if anybody else had similar experiences growing up, if you remember having panic attacks at a young age or anxiety, and how the people around you reacted to that. I'd be really interested to know. We love hearing your stories, we really, really do. And there's lots of other stories you can go and watch on this channel, so go and take a look. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!